Okay, got it.
We're on, guys.
Welcome to the Indian Gaming Association's The New Normal webcast. My name is Lisa Johnson. I'm the conference manager for the Indian Gaming Trade Show and Convention. I'd like to share a few housekeeping tips before we get started. Everyone is muted by default except for our speakers. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the chat box and they'll be brought up at the end. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Victor Rocha, conference chairman of the Indian Gaming Association.
Thank you, Lisa. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the New Normal, your go-to source for in-depth discussions on the gaming industry and critical issues impacting Native American tribes across the United States. I'm Victor Rocha, and joining me is my co-host Jason Giles, Executive Director of the Indian Gaming Association. And today we're talking about prediction markets with our good friend Stephen Hart. Welcome, Stephen. How you doing, my friend?
Doing well, Victor. How about you?
You know what? I'm doing good. For the people out there who don't know you now, listen, I know you, but Jason doesn't know you. So tell him who you are.
I've been a lawyer for many years now, probably close to 40. But I also spent some time as the head of the Arizona Department of Gaming. So ran the state agency that does gaming, and that kind of gave me and sparked my interest, and I've carried on with that ever since. I'm with this firm now. I was with Louis Roca, which is a great firm. It's still kind of half around because we merged with another entity, another tribe, and or not another tribe, another I know I know, but another firm, and now we're a huge firm. So that was the reasons for our delay this morning a little bit.
Well, oh no problem. Well, you know what? I was surprised to see that the merger and congratulations. Like we were talking off that it's always a real pain, but it must be a interesting change for sure.
What's the line? Turn and face the strain.
Yeah. So you know what? So let's jump right in here. This is interesting. With a lot of tribes and me, we're fighting the sweepstakes and offshore black market gambling, and next thing you know, we have this prediction markets which is coming right through the front door. Could you how does this differ from traditional gambling? Is it gambling? Let's start from the beginning.
Well, I tell you what, is it gambling is the $6 million question. That's a big one, and that's what the courts are trying to figure out right now. If I might, it might help if I just went through a couple, two or three little slides that I have. We don't have to put them up.
No, yeah, go ahead, Stephen. Yeah,
I
sure.
just I just think that it's good to get an introduction to this because I don't know about you, but I didn't know very much at all about these types of contracts until I started reading about them here about a month or so ago.
Everybody, it was everyone. After the election, it was like, we saw it coming in December, and then here it was in January. So,
So Kalshi is a private company, and that's the company that we're primarily talking about today. And it
right.
was founded in 2018. It's launched its operations in 2021 and became the first event contracts exchange to be fully regulated by the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. And nobody calls it the Commodities Futures Trading Commission. Everyone calls it CFTC.
Boy,
So,
do I feel stupid.
so, since 2021, Kalshi's app, this is amazing to me, has been downloaded at least 2 million times. And they've traded nearly $2 billion worth of contracts. So this is not a small company. This is a big company, and they've got something going on. They provide a platform for individuals to purchase event contracts. In
Hang one
other
second.
words,
Hey, Lisa, could you toss Mark Brody out? That idiot is in our feed. Could you toss him out? No, nobody wants to listen to this guy.
okay, I'm with you there and there.
Yeah, he's this loser. I seen him on LinkedIn. He's screaming. He's all trumped out. He thinks he's a big tough guy. So toss that loser out.
Cool.
Thank you. All right, let's go.
So Kalshi provides a platform for individuals to purchase event contracts. In other words, It provides a platform for individuals to buy a yes or a no position with respect to whether an event will happen. So that's what Kalshi is. But what are event contracts? An event contract is a derivative contract whose payoff is based on a specified event, occurrence, or value. Um, a contract like that could be based on whether a country's average gas price falls under a certain amount on a specified date, or a certain candidate wins a certain position. This is how Kalshi got into the big leagues. They picked Trump. And they picked Trump 2 or 3 months before any of the big polls were out. So that gave them credibility. That's where they came from. Within the derivative markets, federally regulated exchanges and market participants trade contracts to one, hedge risks, and number two, they aggregate information about an event into a single probability value. So it's about shrinking down the issue so that you can get a yes or a no answer. The problem that has now arisen is that exchanges, in particular crypto.com, not cryptocurrencies, crypto.com, which I'm going to discuss a little bit later, is launching sports event trading platforms in all states, all 50 states, claiming to be fully licensed to do so and threatening to disrupt the state-by-state approach to regulated online sports betting.
It's interesting for me, Steve, as you've watched this and, about a year ago, I was asking on LinkedIn, I was like, okay, how is this going to play out? And it seemed to me that this is where it was going to be going, but it seems like, from now, I don't, from everyone that I've talked to that have played it, I think Jason has some money that he's done it. It's just, we're still in the early stages of it. It doesn't have the excitement yet. It doesn't have the feel, doesn't have the interfaces of like a FanDuel and DraftKings, but it only seems like a matter of time before
Absolutely.
that happens.
What's stopping it?
Yeah.
The CFTC was stopping it. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a few moments. But it's hard to see what's going to stop this. What we have to rely on is that the federal court system that has been triggered ends up slowing this down and perhaps stopping it. So the exchanges can trade contracts on the open market by self-certifying. This stuff is a little bit legal, but it's worth it because it'll help understand the whole thing. Self-certifying that their contracts comply with the Commodities Exchange Act, requesting CFTC to pre-approve their contracts, and to trade contracts under a self-certification process. Exchanges submit a certification to the CFTC.
What does that mean, Stephen? For us,
here we go. If a contract involves any activity identified under Title 7, Section 7A-2, those items are, ready? Gaming, unlawful activity, war, assassination, or terrorism. So if the contracts involve any of that, the CFTC can issue a notice of a 30-day review to determine whether or not this particular contract is contrary to the public interest.
But Stephen, I thought I saw the other day they had a contract on if the Pope was going to die. You know what I mean? So I saw one the other day they were talking about that. So, but again, self-certifying, is this a change to, I mean, not just the gaming industry, but is this a change to the regulatory,
Let's focus for just a second on the Pope. There isn't anything here ungaming, unlawful activity, war, assassination, terrorism, unless somehow or other he was poisoned. But there's nothing in there. So that means there would be no ability for the CFTC to issue this 90-day warning and to look at the issue and figure out whether or not it's, quote, contrary to the public interest. See how that works? So you've given us example, and it's actually a pretty good example of how it was designed to work. Things like this would happen. People would want to know, but then all of a sudden, people started realizing that there's not a whole lot of difference between what these contracts do, what exchanges do, and what sports betting does. That's really how it emerged.
Jason, what do you think?
Well, I mean, Stephen, if you can, let's go back real quick to the legal aspect. Kalshi's already won at the district court level in DC, and we've got it on appeal to the DC Circuit Court of Appeals. Is that correct?
That's right. 2023, Kalshi tried to self-certify contracts that would allow buyers to predict which political party would control Congress on a specific date. Then CFTC believed so now that's the regulator believes that the congressional control contracts, that's what they call those, are involved in gaming, that's kind of interesting, and unlawful activity, not sure, under the rules, and they can then issue a notice of a 90-day review, determine that these contracts, this is what they did, they determined that the contracts were contrary to the public interest, and then they prohibited Kalshi from trading them. And that kind of takes us through the most current stuff. In 2024, after the challenge, CFTC's decision after challenging the decision the decision pursuant to the Administrative Procedures Act, the DC court analyzed Kalshi's lawsuit framework and held that the congressional control contracts did not, this is the big change, did not involve unlawful activity or gaming. So it all starts up again. That's the answer to your question, Jason. It started up again, and we now have, in September of 2024, the CFTC decided that they would now appeal. So that that's the district court's decision, and they requested an emergency stay. There wasn't any irreparable harm. The emergency stay was denied, and now there's a reversal of the decision on the merits. That's the other thing they're trying to do. We don't have the decision yet, but the DC Court of Appeals heard arguments on January 17, and has yet to issue a decision.
But now Trump's got new people in the CFTC.
Yes, sir.
So
that's exactly right.
Have they, as the CFT switched its position, have they notified the court of a change in legal position?
Are you talking the ones that are on the board of Kalshi and the ones that are investors? Are those ones? Are you talking about those people?
He's talking about the Trump administration, which approved a new chair for the CFTC and an interim acting chair for the CFTC. The new chair is pro-crypto, not pro-crypto.com, but pro-crypto currencies. And the interim acting is prediction markets.
So what the big thread here.
Identified, Jason. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Well, you know what? I think, to cut to the chase is what the big issue here is that this expands gambling in all 15 states.
Yes.
It's going through the feds saying, this is no longer controlled by the states. We, the feds, can go, and that's been the big issue. How do we get gambling across all 50 states to have this uniformity that the industry wants, but the states are going, listen, we want to control it. This is something that bypasses everything. Even in Utah, now you're able to take bets. You could stand right on the front of the temple and grab a bet, if you want. Or you can do in Hawaii, which is, well, now they're talking about online gaming. They have some bills going on. But my point is now this is a threat that came out of left field. It expands it in all 50 states. I can see how it's a threat, but Stephen, how does it play? Jason, how does it play? Is it a threat? Is it something that's
Well,
going to be, with
to
boomers,
Stephen's
or the
point,
young kids going to play it?
well, to Stephen's point, Kalshi, started off small and now they've got over, 2 billion downloads.
Mhm.
And we saw that DraftKings has already filed for what was it, a patent for
No, they
a trading
filed to go to a trade group. They filed to register
An
for
application.
a business group called the National Futures Association. So that's the
Yeah.
first step.
They're a
But then
regulatory body.
yeah.
The National Futures Association has been the regulator for CFTC since 1982. So
So
they're
DraftKings
go
wants
ahead.
to open a trading platform, and that's how you do it. You submit an application with, yeah, the NFTC.
That's right. That
Yeah.
I think
So
that's the way I read it too.
yeah, and so, but the point being, Victor, as this looks like almost a done deal. They've got a court
Almost,
they,
but
right. They've
look,
got a court victory in hand. They've got people at the CFTC that want this to happen. You've got DraftKings poised to, enter the market right away, assuming this becomes legal. Um, so the question is, what do we do? I mean, we're going to have to, assuming uh, that most states, I just don't know that there's been. This is why you have that special rule, Stephen,
Mhm.
because there is questions of public policy and whether
Sure.
this is something that socially the country is ready and willing to accept. And like look at what you've already got, Victor. You got the Pope thing. I remember when Rumsfeld, he wanted to have a terrorism prediction futures market as a way of you know snuffing out plots that were going on.
They had the
Some
playing
inside.
cards.
Well, yeah, well, some insider would go, place bets on it, and if it showed up in a prediction market, maybe
Meme
that's good.
cards.
But
Let's let's fill out the actors just a little bit more because this is kind of
okay,
interesting, I think. First, Major League Baseball has sent a letter to the CFTC saying decrying the lack of regulatory protection, that now they used to have all this protection, now they have nothing, and they're very concerned. I'm going to be surprised if we don't hear from other major sports franchises. The next thing, of course, 10 groups representing tribal gaming have sent letters to the CFTC. I don't know that that's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. At least we may get some audience from them. Very interesting. The Nevada Control Board issued a cease and desist letter to Kalshi. That's a beast. When you got yourself involved in the Nevada Control
So then
Board,
this becomes a states' right things, doesn't it?
yeah, it does. It's a states' rights thing. Yeah,
Wow.
that's what happens.
So how big a threat is this? So, you know what I mean? And I'll tell you where my mind goes on this thing. When we started doing class two bingo, you know what I mean? Class two bingo was a very binary thing. You do it, you make your choice, you know
Mhm.
what I mean? And then it's got sped up so that a class two plays just like class three. Is that what's going to happen with this? Are they going to speed this up that even a slot machine could be instant contract, or do you have to file for each one of these things? Is it a possibility that it could be all sped up so that it plays as fast as a sports betting app?
I think what you're going to do is you're going to see regulatory bodies like the Nevada Control Board enter the fray. You're going to see states, attorney generals, they're going to enter the fray. They're going to file lawsuits against if CFTC decides not to do their job. Then they're going to file against them. If not, they'll try to file against anyone they can. And I think that the real question is, will the litigation, will all of that take 4 years?
Right, 4 years.
Right. Well, I mean, Victor, to your question, I don't know that it's going to speed up anything, but what it's going to do is, you know, especially for a sport like football, where there's only one game a week, or your team only plays once a week. I mean, you can easily get a sports futures contract on that. You can easily bet on the Super Bowl next year, and you know, in the past, that's been always considered gambling. You know, reading that court opinion, they really delved into the difference between gaming and gambling, and
Wow,
you know,
wow, right?
yeah, we kind of did that to ourselves, Stephen. And I remember there was a opinion long ago where Scalia was saying, don't use euphemisms for gambling because,
Right.
it's not going to work out. I can't remember the case. It was one of those, may have been one of those, but early class two cases when he was still on the DC Circuit Court. But, this is what happens because then people in the commercial world can start to take your euphemisms and make them whatever the heck they want them to be. And
I
so,
think I
but
think
do
in
I see
the
a
end,
world with DraftKings resources where they can get real creative with this stuff? Heck yeah.
yeah,
And so,
I think that
But
that's
but but
absolutely right.
but the big deal is that if it becomes a state issue and the state finds it illegal, like in Nevada, and they find DraftKings is doing it, then that becomes a violation of their license and regulated market, doesn't it? So there's a big
Exactly.
threat to those guys too, you know?
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Big time.
absolutely. And another implication of this is that the sports trading becomes really, an opportunity. And then you've got online sports betting operators. Maybe they turn on operations in California, Florida, Texas, and ultimately start surrendering their licenses, their state licenses, in exchange for, or because they would prefer the federal framework.
Yeah.
That's you
Yeah,
know
Victor, there's nothing stopping. Like they couldn't tell the CFTC, you're wrong, and we're not going to let people in Nevada do sports prediction market. No, it'd
But
be
so
like
so
trying to
so so then
prevent
basically
people from gambling on stocks. Like you can't
they
prevent
become
people from
basically
gambling on
stake or
stocks.
chumba again. You know what I mean? Which is we've decided not to work within your regulatory system,
mhm.
and we will go this way, and we don't want the control. We don't how are taxes going to be paid on this, Stephen?
Uh,
Well,
good
through the
question.
CFTC, I mean, it's probably at the rate of however
Capital
futures
gains or
contract.
something?
Right, right. Short-term capital gains probably, but because there will be federal oversight, if you will, through the CFTC and this NFTC, and uh, but that being said, now California has a sports gambling market that they never asked for or have negotiated for, and their citizens are betting on games because it's easy to do through an app now. So
Yeah, can a state file a lawsuit? Can a state like California file a lawsuit and say, we're not interested in having unregulated, unprotected gaming within our state. We think it's a risk to our members, our citizens. And so, no, we don't want to do that. And we think we have the control over gambling. I think that wins. If it doesn't win, it's a close goddamn fight, and we're going to be thinking to ourselves, can we go for 4 years?
There's that number
well,
again.
Yeah. Look, will the big commercial entities like DraftKings win? Will the big commercial entities like Kalshi win? Or and is it the tribes that lose? That's
Well,
the big.
you know what's interesting? If you listen to the sweepstake guys, that they've been screaming like stuck pigs. They've been saying, "Listen, don't attack us. Go after FanDuel and DraftKings. These are the guys that are going to own this market. We're just over here, not bothering anybody."
Mhm.
Obviously that part of that's a deflection, but is it? Are they going to be even bigger threat? You know what I mean? It seems to me for California, it's about exclusivity. I think the myth of tribal gaming exclusivity we can stop talking about that now. You know what I mean? Because there's gambling in California the tribes don't own. So the exclusivity just exists as a hypothetical at this point. Now they don't have slot machines and stuff, but you can get them on your phone. So, gambling is here.
You're gonna have to file a big lawsuit to stop it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Well, go ahead.
Uh,
We're watching, Stephen. Go ahead. You got
yeah.
that new
Well, I
big
mean,
law
Yeah.
firm.
The state,
well, so
Shiny,
the
brand new.
state should be the entity that files.
Mhm.
State of California should be the entity that files. And I'm going to be
Right.
talking to people here in Arizona about this later today, because I think that
Oh,
going through this process has convinced me there's only one thing we can do, and that's really is to file the lawsuits now.
Yeah,
Unless, Jason, you may have some ways of impacting Congress, but I don't know who can impact Congress right now.
oh my gosh. They don't even understand the regular internet gambling. So we're trying to explain something like this.
well,
Right.
listen, guys, I have it figured out. I have it all figured out, obviously. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna adopt Eric Trump. And we know Junior's on the board of Kalshi, so we're gonna adopt Eric Trump. We need to get a tribe to do that, and then he'll be working for us then. So that's how we go forward. We have some questions here. We have a couple good questions here. For one for
Yeah.
Carlton, and then we'll get to you, Ernest. Carlton says Bitcoin IC360 does a hell of a job monitoring the market for oddities and wagering. They see the sports betting data and draw attention to potentially integrity issues and do it well. Will they be the eyes on CFTC action? And can this disrupt our entire integrity framework in regulated sports betting? That's a very good question. What do you think, Stephen?
The answer is yes, it can. That's exactly what it can do. It can take this process that's become quite a good process where, every state by state, the online sports betting companies have to go. And that's what they've been doing, and it's been working. So I think the answer to his question is yes.
So we have to rely. Is the government
Well,
getting out of a regulatory stuff? Does this
no,
all,
the CFTC would regulate it, and I trust them. They've been a pretty stringent commission, Stephen, in terms of they act quicker and they have a lot to do because of the nature of commodities futures trading. That is a huge integral part of our economy. And frankly, the world economy, because you're not going to come by a futures contract in America on soybeans and without good regulation, ensure you're going to get paid and it's enforceable, all that. So if you're betting on the president to die in 2 years, it'll be an enforceable futures contract at the CFTC. It just goes back to the question of, is that really something we as a society want to be betting on? I mean, are we just Coliseum, you know, going back
well,
to that kind of
Gary, sorry, Gary mentions that they're doing this in the UK all the time. When we're over there, you can
right.
bet on the Academy
Yes.
Awards, you can bet on
Um,
all kinds of, but
right.
it's most of it seems to be
It's not the
social.
same as having unregulated sports betting.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's a
I gotta
different beast.
say, I've pointed out there is and it seems to have done at least from what I could tell and having been in the UK and read about it, they just said, look, better to be out in the open than doing this underground is what they came to the conclusion of.
Yeah,
And I think there's some valid arguments in that, but they as a government and a parliament decided that's the way they were going to go. They debate. If you have that open debate in this country, you're going to have two senators in Utah that will, filibuster it and hold it up for as long as they can, for one. And not to mention probably senators in every other state that just, is against betting on the Pope to die and the next terrorist attack, the next will this hurricane destroy a certain city, things like that. I mean, I just don't know that a lot of people have the stomach for that kind of society that where we're betting on tragedy. Then again, uh, you know, when it comes to sports, do I really care if I have a good prediction in the Super Bowl? And as it gets closer and closer, I want to sell that contract because it was actually a decent bet. Now I can just get the money now and not have to wait till the end of the Super Bowl. That's really where this goes. Same with like, I can see why Major League Baseball is concerned because you can bet on someone, for hits, home runs, errors, even. And
Yeah.
that's out there, and the player knows it's out there. And we've already had in the NBA a guy throwing parts of his game so that he wouldn't score the amount of points that was wagered on him. That's where you get in, these moral quandaries. How do you know it's not rigged from the
Jason, the
inside?
only thing the only area where I'm not sure that we see eye to eye is this idea that the CFTC will kind of come to the rescue.
Okay.
I,
Yeah,
I,
I
I,
mean,
I
again,
just don't know. It's
right.
one of those many
Well,
uncertainty factors, right?
hey, yeah, SEC certainly, never stopped an Enron or these other scam companies that existed for a while. Sam Bankman-Fried and his nonsense.
But look at
Where were the
California
regulators?
and Enron and the commodities market.
Right,
I mean,
right.
that's how I see them, and that's how I know them. Um,
Mhm.
so what can we do, Stephen? What should the strategy be here? What should tribes be doing? And because this creates, I think in California, obviously the exclusivity, you're having gambling, California, everything that I've seen, all the numbers that have been coming in my desk the last year show California is the big ripe golden goose that's just sitting there. As Richard Armstrong says, in this thing, do we expect California to do anything if they haven't done anything? We got an attorney general that's going to be looking to run for governor, so he's not doing anything, and the governor race in California will be interesting. They're saying that Kamala Harris might come back and run for governor. If she does, that'll clear the tables, and she'll be governor of California if that's the case.
Mhm.
Um,
I think that the CFTC is big issue number one. Will the CFTC maintain its integrity? If it does, we don't got much to worry about. If it doesn't, we've got a lot to worry about. And I really think spending time with the Attorney General's office and trying to get the local, the state regulator on board and getting a suit filed is what you have to do.
Okay. Yeah, Victor.
Layla Martinez has a question here. She goes, do prediction markets have ethical limits? For example, should people be able to bet on health crisis or wars? How many people are going to die in this measles epidemic in Texas? You know what I
Right.
mean? So far, we have two, or four, or whatever it is today. So those are the kind of things that they're talking about with ethical. And I think
That's what they
that's where
do.
the F
That's why we need an integrity with the CFTC. And if we don't have it, we've got a real big problem. It's not just a gaming problem.
right.
Yeah.
So Jason, what do we think about this, man?
Well, I think it's priority number one, right up there with sweepstakes.
Mhm.
And then on top of it, we talk about integrity, and this, it's not the CFTC's role to uh, dictate what medium of currency people are going to use or even allow it. But, if we're talking integrity, and then you're going to start bringing in cryptocurrency, where, to this day, still, I don't know anyone who uses it besides criminals and Russians and, you know, Putin, all these guys. I mean, it's just still not, accepted and social
But
medium of
Jason,
exchange.
they now have a national reserve
And
for crypto,
no, they don't have that yet. That's going to take an act of Congress. And, but again, you've got an administration that is thinking that way.
And what's
And,
this business that they're running? They own a business. He owns a business now.
right, right. With the meme coin nonsense, but that just does more harm than good, frankly, because it just
Yeah.
shows everybody it's a damn scam. And I don't know. I mean, I guess El Salvador switched to Bitcoin for their country's currency. And, that's who we should be emulating, I suppose. Would just, forget that, the
Their
dollar's been
street
the biggest thing
gangs
in the
are
world
all
for
taking crypto now. They're shaking people down for crypto over there in the market. So they have entire crypto gangs, I hear, running down the streets. So you know what? I think, Jason, I think what the big issue here is that I think once everybody's waking up to the threat, they realize this is a states' right issue. You know what I mean? For a federal organization or a self-regulatory group or whatever to say that you could do gambling in Utah and Hawaii is a states' right issue. So I think once the industry wakes up, I mean,
What
look
is
at
gambling though,
how
Victor? It gets back to that court case. What is gambling?
What's gambling?
I mean, honestly, you
That's the
got
big
that.
one.
you
Yeah.
Absolutely.
lawyers, you
Well, I mean,
lawyers,
True. He's absolutely right. That's going to be the critical part in the lawsuit going forward.
and I wish it
Is
was a
this or
lawyer's
isn't it?
thing, but
but
right.
but listen, I hope it goes to court. Look at their website. It's gambling. They're calling it sports betting. It's being sold as gambling. It's being promoted as gambling, and then to say it's not gambling, you know, it's just they're going to have a hard time getting past that one. Because they're promoting it as gambling. It says it on their promotional materials. Just like the sweepstakes people. No, this isn't gambling, one for one. You know what I mean? It's the same type of trickery. Oh boy, I must use the wrong word in there. It's the same
Yeah.
type of trickery in there.
But
Um,
Victor, our entire with what the way you're describing it, our entire agricultural system, oil and natural gas, it's all gambling then because you buy contracts.
it is, isn't it? It is,
y-
isn't it?
Yeah. And there's any Wall Street guy will tell you the best gambling is always on Wall Street, where you can just you can get these futures contracts on stocks. You can sell short. You can do all these different things with stocks. Not just buy and hold. You can day trade and all that. I mean, I'm sorry, that's gambling, and but they don't want to call it gambling. They call it by what it is. Futures contracts and everything. So uh, it's look, there was a Great Depression because of all this. When in agriculture and everything, your contracts are worthless because the crops didn't come in. So, it's other people will tell you it's a way of hedging risk is all it really is in the end. I buy that argument too. I think there is some uh, risk hedging that is good, and also just contrarian. Like if you think this country is going the wrong way, and you saw it in The Big Short, that the guy you had up on your website there, Victor. They saw where the
Mike Lewis.
the mortgage market was a disaster waiting to happen. And if they could
Right.
bet on the other side of it, they figured out a way to. So, it is a way to hedge risk. And again, the way the UK looked at it, we should just have all this out in the open and not, underground Eastern European gangs doing this kind of stuff.
Right. Well, you know what? Again, going back, I think if a state doesn't want to have gambling, they shouldn't have it been forced down their throat. One of
No,
the
no, no, no.
interesting.
What they want is they want gambling that isn't full of integrity problems and ethical problems. This is going to have all kinds of problems with it. So it's not just gaming. It's gaming of the, oh my God, can you believe how this works?
Yeah. One of the interesting narratives
Right.
during the election was that how they predicted the Trump election. And one
Mhm.
guy in Germany had made all this money and he hired his own pollsters and started doing calling. And or no, the strategy was he didn't ask the people, he asked their neighbors. That was the whole big deal. He asked, how do you think your neighbor's going to vote? And stuff like that. And that's how he predicted the vote. He ended up making a whole bunch of money. He cornered it. He used his strategy. It felt like, I guess that was fair. You know what I mean? He went and did the research and decided that, the market and the pollsters were leaning heavily on Kamala, and he bet on Trump, and he ended up winning. So a lot of people were saying, well, look at this is a way to bypass the thumb of the media on public opinion and get to the true nature of
Right.
the vote. You know what I mean? And it was an interesting narrative for the while. None of
Mhm.
that is happening now. You know what I mean? This is completely different, you know? But that was a really interesting thing. You know, I watched it and read everything I could about it, and I thought that was absolutely fascinating. But, we're not talking about that. We're talking about turning this into sports betting. Now look at we had the Super Bowl. How'd that go, Stephen? How was that received for
Crypto,
prediction market?
which is the other major player here, crypto bet on. They
Right,
ran,
crypto.com.
yeah, they ran on that, and they've continued to do very well after that. So
So
that was I think that was the thing that sparked the most concern coming from the operators themselves. Operators and regulatory, whether that's state or wherever it might be, those are the entities that were driving the problem. Not driving the problem, driving the education of everybody that it is a problem.
right. Richard Armstrong is very active in actually, let's go to this anonymous one here, which I thought was a really good question. He goes, are there any congressional members calling for a closer look at this matter? Have you heard anything, Stephen?
Oh
Nothing.
my God.
I haven't heard anything.
I mean,
Right now,
they're,
I
they're
think they're, go
yeah.
ahead.
Well, they're preoccupied just watching the government shrink down to nothing. So to think that they're going to care about this, and that's part of what Stephen gets out with the CFT. We shouldn't be so quick, because I'm sure they're getting gutted too, or having to shed folks.
Well, you get and that goes back to the issue that Richard says, do you believe in the government? And I was like, not right now when they're firing inspector generals and other
So
safety,
exactly.
so, I don't have a lot of faith in any of this whatsoever. Um, but look at we will be talking about this. Hopefully we'll have some more answers
Yeah.
in a couple weeks at IGA. Our dear friend Steven's going to be there.
So, well,
Go
Stephen,
ahead, Jason.
so April 30th is when they've tentatively scheduled this roundtable. I mean, and weirdly, they've just let the interested parties designate whoever they want to talk at the roundtables. Uh, they've kind of washed their hands. It's not your normal rulemaking process for sure.
Right.
And now I understand why it's not, because they have you know, this current CFTC commission has what I think they consider a victory in their hand at the district court, and and that they don't need to issue a new rule or regulation. They already have the authority and the power to
Right.
regulate all this.
Yeah, we haven't
So
talked about that. Those regulations will be important. Those regulations come out with a definitive definition of gaming. It's gonna change this.
oh, okay.
But
So
Stephen, everybody's saying that the thumb's on the scale. You know what I mean? Everyone's saying a lot of people don't feel that. A lot of people, being me, by the way, feel that the thumb is on the scale and that they're not going to get a real fair shake, especially when you have this administration, Don Jr. coming out and these guys coming out of the industry. It's really about. I think this administration has said, you listen, we're going to blow the doors wide open with crypto. We're going to blow the doors wide open. And, anything, what you believed in yesterday might not be true today. You know what I
After
mean?
all these years, state government may become our friend.
Yeah. Yeah. Wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be something?
what's your next step, Stephen? So I mean, I guess, should we just get ready for the litigation that will follow
I'm
the
gonna I'm gonna
roundtable?
watch because I'm gonna watch what's gonna happen with the CFTC because you may be right and they may do their job, and I'm gonna watch what you guys can do up there because you guys are in the right place. I'm over here in Phoenix, Arizona. So I think that the first thing is to watch very carefully, send letters and do those types of things. But I think it's a smaller project to begin with. Um, but I also am very cynical about the ability of the federal agency in this case to do its job. So I'm going to start talking to my clients about getting ready to, when you work with the state, sometimes really what you do is all the work. So, so you have to do all the complaint, all the stuff, and you have to find somebody there in the Attorney General's office that's ready and willing to work hard. That's the kind of stuff you have to do because this is going to be a big battle, I think.
Okay.
Michael Hoenig said that, hey, Michael, Congresswoman Titus sent a letter to the CFTC in response to the roundtable announcement. Now, that brings a really good point, and you mentioned this earlier. Nevada seems to be moving out front of everyone.
Yes.
You
Nevada's
know,
out front right now. They're the regulatory entity that's saying to Kalshi, cease and desist. We're done.
right.
Not gonna, and that's going to be something that's going to be hard for them to get through.
Well, if you go back to the sweepstakes, what's happened in the last since October, G2E, things have really started moving in that direction. New Jersey's talking about criminalizing it, Maryland, Mississippi. I think, it feels like the industry's starting to wake up to this. I think the states are starting to wake up to this threat. I think just like sweepstakes was under their nose, I think this is something once people get a better understanding of the threat this is, and more again, a states' right issue. You are now being told that the feds they're gonna have gambling whether you want it or not. And again, putting our hopes in the CFTC is kind of scary for me. But, Jason, maybe they'll appeal to the better angels, right? Because, the stock market really is like that. They're so humanitarian, you know?
Right. Now we'll discuss this at our trade show, and we've got a couple panels on it. It's going to be a big part of the tribal leader discussion on at Tuesday afternoon, because we've got to come together as an Indian gaming industry and find our allies where they are and push back on this. Otherwise,
It affects
California
everyone in the industry. You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
whole supply chain, everybody in the supply chain gets affected, and we all need to stick together, as we've
with the
done.
Oklahoma, like California and Oklahoma tribes have been patiently waiting to negotiate, fair reciprocal agreements with their respective states. And this could just, what was the point of it all?
Well,
Heating up
let's
and
let's
heating
let's
up
talk a
and
hypothetical. Let's talk a hypothetical, okay? Stephen, can the tribes get involved in this? Could the Oklahoma tribes decide to go around the governor and get into it and do contracts that way? Well,
I
he
mean,
lost contact. He turned his computer off.
no,
no,
I didn't do that.
No, I'm just joking.
I was just trying to think about that and how that would work exactly.
Well, obviously they would claim it's a violation of their compacts. There would be a lot of other mechanisms but besides that, as a hypothetical,
well,
they
they would
could
have to do
possibly
what
do that.
DraftKings is doing. They'd have to, form a company, say this company is interested in,
Yeah,
regulating
that's
futures
right.
contracts and just do what DraftKings is doing. And so I think you answer your question, Victor, is yes, they could do it. Whether or not, they'll have to be paying, some type of federal taxes. Uh, but again, is that what the tribe is really interested in?
Listen, if all these Las Vegas players,
Exclusivity is the big issue.
right?
if all these Las Vegas players with gambling licenses and gaming licenses in Nevada can do sweepstakes and nothing happens to them, then I don't see why the tribes can't do prediction markets also. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
Right.
it's the same thing. I mean, these guys are getting away with it. They're in gray market. They all have licenses, but Nevada regulators, they're not doing anything about it. So it's kind of the same thing, you know? Good
So
with, but
do you send your
hypotheticals.
clients, who are doing sports betting, do you send your clients who are doing blackjack, do you send all of these people to this kind of an agency where there's no real regulation? And I don't know that I would want to do that.
Right.
I would be afraid for my clients. I mean, this is a mess.
Mhm. Right. So,
So,
Well,
Ernest asked a good question here. He wants to know about the numbers on Kalshi sports wagering. I believe you had some numbers in your presentation, didn't you, Stephen? Maybe that was Gene's presentation.
I think it must have been.
yeah, it was
Yeah,
Gene. Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry.
I'll send that to you, Ernest. I'll send you Gene's coming out with an article real soon to talk about this from his research and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Gene Johnson. But
Yeah.
Ernest, I'll send you his PowerPoint presentation that we did in Siniga and stuff like that. So, well, guys, we've talked about
Yeah.
this issue, and this is, really important, and I think it's bring everybody's attention is how this could be again, the proverbial nose underneath the tent, except it's in all 50 states, you know,
All 50 states.
a
Wow.
50 nose camel, something like that. Sorry, I had to go there. So anyhow, is there any more questions from our friends out there? And guys, sorry about Mark Brody. That was funny. This guy's been on LinkedIn screaming about tribes and Trump should take, what was the thing? It was talking about tribes shouldn't be using their monies. It was going after the North Dakota tribes, talking about them. And somebody sent me the comments on LinkedIn. And when I tried to look at the guy blocked me, which I thought was hysterical. So,
Who's
but
Mark?
coming in the comment section talking smack is, ask good questions. We're adults. We like to hear good questions. So anyhow, that was fun throwing that guy out. But hey, listen, everyone, thanks you so much. I want one more question. Kudos to Gene Johnson, your team on present. Thank you, Richard. And we're going to try to do that presentation at IGA too. We're wrapping up the agenda today and tomorrow. We're all pretty much done. And so listen, we'll be back next week.
Right.
And listen, we're gonna see you guys. We'll be back talking about the show. If we see anything else, we'll be talking about. We're keeping our eye on this. It doesn't seem to be going away. And we want to make sure that we understand what the threat is to Indian country and what this means to all of us in the industry too. So that's our job. Stephen, thank you so much for joining us, my friend. It's good to see you.
You too.
Jason, thank you
Jason.
so
Yep.
much. Good to
Thank
see you
you.
guys, and everybody. Really, we'll see you guys next week, and then we'll see you at the show in a couple weeks. Thank you very much.
Excellent.
All right.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.